Now, we often hear the term peak fiction so much in the fan base that it almost doesn't hold any weight. But I can assure you that this next chapter is true peak fiction. For many people like myself who are interested in picking up the comics but didn't know where a great place to start would be, we were often told either issue 160 or 175. The reason for this, I suspect, is the status quo. If 160 onwards was Ian tying up loose ends for the former writer's work, and setting up the groundwork for things to come later, then I'd say that 175 onwards is truly the start of his legacy with this comic. Let's delay no longer. The Chaotix and Freedom Fighters are at the old base enjoying themselves when a concerned Knuckles tells them that Espio has been gone for too long. Julie Sue tries to convince Knuckles that he is fine and that there is no reason to worry. But Rouge, with a better understanding for Knuckles' concern, opts to adhere to his intuition, saying that she will accompany him to seek Espio. Guess you could say that the girls are still at odds over Knuckles. Sally tells Sonic that this is a good sign to see everyone enjoy themselves, and while he agrees, he can't help but feel that Tails is hiding something from him. Tails and Rotor share a moment, concerned that Tails has had it rough lately, and while it has indeed been a lot to take in, he assures Rotor that everything will be fine. Nothing is fine, however, as Snively comes crashing through their roof and begins vaporizing everyone. Rotor saves Tails, but that aside, nearly everyone, the Chaotix, Rouge, the Freedom Fighters, all of them were zapped away by Snively's mech, leaving, oh, would you look at that? It's our main four heroes. Snively tells Sonic that he was only a mere distraction, blows up the body of his mech, and darts out of there in his Eggmobile. Tails, realizing that he's implying that the kingdom is under attack, asks Sonic to shoot for the kingdom right away. Eggman has never been this intimidating, ever. The landscape is charred, the buildings are all destroyed. Sonic's home is no longer, and the citizens of Acorn are completely gone. All that remains is the image of the cat. Sonic, overwhelmed that his friends are unmistakably captured, Eggman retorts, reminding us that his beams are merely teleportation waves and that his people will be having their life force siphoned by the prison pods. Eggman challenges Sonic's confidence, calling him a failure for letting Tommy and Sir Connery die, for being unable to de-roboticize his father and Bunny, and questions his love life with Sally, Mina, which happened ages ago, and more recently, Fiona, asking Sonic, why is he all alone? Sonic can only yell back a simple shut up as Eggman makes him dodge for his life. Attack after attack, Eggman tries to break Sonic down, telling him that the rest of the world had turned against the Freedom Fighters in fear of Eggman. How else would he be able to build a fleet so massive under their noses? And why wouldn't the nations where the fleets were being built inform the Freedom Fighters that it was occurring? Eggman announces that he truly has the world under his thumb, and soon Sonic will be too, as he suggests that the blue blur is nearing his limit. This enrages Sonic as he darts to the other side of the continent, shouting, "I've got your limit right here," and slingshots back at top speed, slamming directly into Eggman's mech suit and sending him flying. This is such an iconic moment. Let me draw a comparison for a moment. This reminds me very much of the scene from Dragon Ball Z, where Goku unleashes his Kaioken times 20 against Frieza. In both scenes, the heroes are backed into a corner by an antagonist that is a perfect foil to the protagonist, actively challenging their perspective and forcing them to change through adversity. Both scenes make it clear that the hero thoroughly knows what's at stake before unleashing a powerful attack on the enemy that does absolutely nothing to them. In the end, Eggman's mech is much faster, much stronger, and more durable, leading to Sonic's defeat. Eggman spares Sonic, telling him to live for the rest of his life humiliation, and tosses him to the ground as he makes his exit. Tails, sobbing in the eyes, finds Sonic beaten but ready to save the citizens of Napo as they are still alive. Sonic returns back to the base with Tails to tell Amy and Knuckles the situation. Sonic then plans to go at it alone and save the city from Eggman, which Tails argues against, saying that Sonic will have to contend with the fleet, the fortress, and Eggman's mech suit. Sonic, blinded by worry and a bruised ego, insists that he handles it alone, and Tails yells, "Sure, just like how you had it handled a few minutes ago. The two grimace one another, but Nicole, who's still online, tells them to stop the infighting as she has a plan to save everyone. While Team Sonic is on their way to Eggman's fortress, Eggman taunts the captured heroes and the royalty on how weak and futile their resistance is. Before Team Sonic can arrive, Eggman tries to make an example of Charmy by powering up his egg grade. Team Sonic breaks in, frees everyone from the pods, and saves Charmy just in time before his life force is completely drained. Sonic threatens Eggman, telling him that he has a head start to run away as he needs to check on Charmy first. While Eggman and Snively escape the vineyard, Tails and Nicole hack into the egg grape systems with ease since Adam is now gone. After having the doctor verify Charmy's vitals, the citizens all book it, with Nicole and Sonic ensuring Sally that there is indeed a plan to properly escape. Eggman catches up with everyone, blasting all of the escapees with his teleport beam. Soon enough, everyone except Sonic and Sally have been transported again. Sonic stops at a dead end, with Sally believing that he is out of his mind. Eggman blasts Sally, then leaves Sonic for last. As Sonic is blasted away, he smiles with confidence. During the assault, Snively was trying to alert Eggman that the beam is no longer transporting the escapees to the vineyard, and that the coordinates have been changed to warp them to a different location. Perplexed, Eggman returns back to his fleet, telling Snively to find their location immediately. Remember the Nanite City from Order of Chaos? Now that Adam is gone, Nicole's plan was genius. Her plan was to take control of it, change it into a near-perfect replica of their city before it was destroyed, and change the setting on Eggman's teleport beam to warp everyone to what is essentially a new replacement for their home. It's an absolutely ingenious plan, and it goes to show just how capable and important the supporting cast is outside of Sonic. I love stuff like this, as it plays with all the important pieces that they've been building up to in every chapter prior to this issue. Now that they are safe in the kingdom of nanites, Nicole can manifest into her physical form. Sally congratulates Nicole and Team Sonic on a perfect rescue, but Nicole alerts them that it's not over yet. The Egg Fleet is on its way to finish what it started. For the last issue of this chapter, I apologize if I lose my cool because oh my god, this is peak Sonic, and very few things in the brand even come close. The villains who were imprisoned at the former Acorn capital were also with the civilians who got warped back home, but Nicole immediately uses the nanites to warp them straight into the New Kingdom's prison. Nicole's physical form vanishes as she needs to focus her energy onto the barrier she's put around the city to protect from Eggman's fleet. Everyone is told to check in with the doctor and immediately return to their houses and recover. Turns out Rotor was hurt trying to save Tails and damaged his spine, and Charmy, while alive, is suffering from heavy amnesia. We cut to Scourge, who informs Finatavis that Dimitri, who was being held captive by them, has escaped and is heading towards the New Kingdom. For the sake of clarity, this is present time Dimitri, not the 25 years later timeline Dimitri. Finatavis assures Scourge that it is all going according to plan to bring forth a new power known as Enerjack. We return to New Knothole with Sally, Bunny, and Antoine having thoughts in retrospect to their rebellion up until now. Sally wistfully asks Bunny a favor, remembering that before the war, Bunny wanted to be a hairdresser. Snively's sister Hope, remember her, flies towards the Egg Fleets, firing shots at Snively's vessel, calling him a traitor for destroying Knothole after they apparently took her in and helped her before meeting her brother. Tears in her eyes, she flies back toward the United Federation where she is now housed. I didn't cover Hope as much this time around, but I promise I will dig a little deeper into her and Snively when it becomes important. Amadeus sees Eggman's attack as an opportunity to plan and reform the kingdom, and Merlin advises his family to be cautious of this kind of thinking. Soon, Eggman comes down with his mech to attack the barrier personally, shouting that he will not let this kingdom rob him of his victory, and that Sonic, seemingly alone, comes out to face Eggman, who reminds him of the last time they faced one another, telling Sonic that his mech suit is specifically designed to beat him. Sonic is just so completely badass, remaining calm and composed, and says, "Yeah, I figured, which means you've got nothing against these guys. I assure you, I jumped out of my seat as the Freedom Fighters and the Chaotix launched a full assault on Eggman's mech. As Eggman's mech is victim to attack after attack, Sonic approaches to do the real damage, the breaking of Eggman's ego, telling Eggman that he greatly miscalculated. Sonic reaffirms that he's not the only hero on Mobius, and while he can handle Eggman on his own sometimes, when he can't, he completely trusts that his friends will be able to win. The Kingdom of Acorn has all chosen to continue the fight. So, game on, Robotnik, Sonic concludes. Eggman tries one last countermeasure from his fleet, but Nicole shields everyone, telling Eggman that he should accept their mercy and leave. Eggman retreats, ending the chapter with everyone complimenting Sally's new haircut. Welcome back, leader of the Resistance. Now, that dialogue Sonic had with Eggman is the pinnacle of not only good writing for Sonic, but great writing in general. The scene acts as an inverse to the prior scene where Eggman tormented Sonic, but in doing so, Eggman proposed the question, what will you do now that everything is lost? And in the end, we get the answer. He will continue living his life and fighting for liberation. It's a stellar dismount to several issues worth of build-up. I hope I've been able to keep you all entertained, as we are now jumping into the last chapter of this part of the review. The House of Cards chapter wraps up one of the last lingering plot threads. So let's get started. Amadeus leads over half the city into protest to have Elias step down as king. Amadeus is arrested, and we meet Nicole and Sonic at the Prower family household as they watch the news. Rosemary says that they thought this would be the best time to advocate for change, but Sonic hilariously dunks on the guy, stating that a riot isn't going to accomplish that. I thought this guy was a tactician, Sonic blurts, upsetting Tails and Rosemary. Nicole advises that Sonic shows a little more tact himself, but he refutes that Amadeus made a dumb decision at the end of the day. She reminds him that things have been tense between himself and Tails, yet he tries to convince her that everything is fine, as he runs off to meet Knuckles before he departs for Angel Island. The Chaotix insist that they return to Angel Island with Knuckles to make sure everything is okay, but Knuckles tells them that it's something that he has to do alone. After Sonic arrives on the scene, Knuckles says his last farewell and departs using the Star Gem. In the Acorn prison, Elias wants to understand why Amadeus started a riot. Amadeus replies that he expected the king to listen to the voice of his people, that he's claiming now to be a riot. You had half the city calling for me to step down, he shouts at Amadeus, who begins to share his beliefs. He sees Elias as unfit to rule, and furthermore he feels that after 3 generations of the Acorn Kingdom keeping its people at war, change for a democracy is well past due. Sonic runs into Elias lingering in the park, discouraged and wanting to give his power back to the people, except he can't. The former king arrives instructing Elias to immediately punish Amadeus and all of the protesters. Bewildered, Sonic asks the king if he really wants to arrest half of his kingdom. Elias follows this up, believing that they should lend an ear to the voice of the people, and the king denounces this way of thinking, stating that they have ruled for hundreds of years and will continue to do so for hundreds more. The king has his family return to the castle, leaving Sonic unsure of what to do. Tails and Rosemary break into the prison to free Amadeus later that night. Apparently, the protesters are still upset, and the idea is that Amadeus could somehow prevent civil war from breaking out by reorganizing them. Nicole, being the city herself, is able to wake Sonic in the dead of night and tells him what is going on at that prison. Essentially, what is a page turn later, Sonic is standing center, telling the Prowers that while he can see many people agree with Amadeus, breaking him out of prison will only make things worse. Rosemary pops the question, would you be okay with Tails knowing that you let his father rot in jail? And honestly, this next part is so extremely controversial. Sonic says, I know you're his real family, but he grew up with me. Heck, the kid worships me. He'll get over it. Most people feel that this is absolutely out of character for Sonic to say, and in fact, a gross piece of character writing on Ian's part. I agree to an extent. It's certainly jaw-dropping to hear Sonic say something this out of line, but I can't help but think that this version of Sonic would most definitely say something like this, and here's why. Sonic is a very powerful teenager in both this story and the games, but the distinction lies in the nuances. Sonic and Archie is exposed more to politics, relationship drama, and various other adult-like elements that he does not, if at all, experience in the main series of games. Therefore, this Sonic can be seen as having depth leagues above what the brand is used to seeing. My point here ultimately is while this moment is awful, it is to some degree realistic as it touches on the extremes of this Sonic's flaws. In this case, His usual confidence has become a gross ego, and his carefree nature is now a lack of consideration. This is surely the worst of Archie's Sonic, but it is still authentically Archie's Sonic. Tails attacks Sonic, letting his parents escape so that they can enact their plan to get an audience with the king. And though reluctant, Sonic unfortunately has to tangle with his best friend. While attacking Sonic, Tails says that this fight was a long time coming. Sonic is confused on why Tails is so upset at him, but Tails refuses to elaborate. Meanwhile, the locks are undone at the castle and the guards are all absent, making Amadeus wonder if the king intended for them to get in so easily. They meet in the throne room and Elias says his piece about how this kingdom has fought hard, gives its lives, and made too many sacrifices to fall to anarchy. Reluctantly, he takes up arms against Amadeus and pursues battle. Sonic manages to get away from Tails for just a second. Tails pursues him, yelling about all the time he's felt hurt, belittled, or betrayed by Sonic. Sonic, not sharing this perspective, says that he was always being his quippy self and never intended for the jokes to be taken that way, that he always wanted to help Tails. Tails screams, "So you hooked up with Fiona to help me?" Upset that Sonic went out with her, knowing about his feelings for her, and feeling as if Sonic just takes away everything he cares about. Sonic surrenders, understanding now that this is how Tails has felt all along. I think Sonic's understanding here comes from a sense of relief as well. He's been at odds with Tails for quite some time now, and I believe that the tension played a part in his gross dialogue earlier. It was denial, him wanting to believe that Tails was still his friend so desperately in that moment that he chose to speak of him possessively. I could be wrong here. Nicole intervenes with the king's fight against Amadeus, bringing with her Sally to the throne room. Let me be clear, Sally is the true main character of this story in most cases. Like, she is such a badass and important character that oftentimes it feels like someone created this world first and then just added Sonic. Not to say he isn't pivotal, but just saying that Sally holds just as much weight as he does in this story, and with her willingness to compromise, she calms Amadeus and opens up discussion. We return to Sonic being honest with Tails, telling him that he knew Fiona didn't care for Tails, and that by dating her, he hoped that Tails would eventually move on because he didn't want Tails to feel the same heartache that he felt when breaking up with Sally. Fiona was just a rebound for Sonic, he admits. He apologizes to Tails, and they share a brief moment before heading over to the castle to stop the fighting. However, thanks to Sally, it has already stopped. They have agreed upon a compromise. There will be an election of 6 members for Not-Whole Council, and the honorary 7th member will be the current monarch. The city will be run by democratic monarchy from now on. In all sincerity, this was actually a great and easy to understand political drama. Elections begin a little while after, with the former king seemingly disappointed in his son's choices. However, the former queen reassures her son, stating that as the current monarch, it is ultimately his decision. Sonic and his friends are now near the ballots, discussing who might be running for council, when suddenly, Dimitri pops up, requesting for his grandnephew Knuckles. What a great cliffhanger. Hey there, if you've made it all the way to the end, thank you. I've been wanting to try something new lately, and I found this story in the process of reviewing it enjoyable. I plan to review this story more on a weekly or semi-weekly basis, so if you're interested, stop by next week. But above anything, I encourage you to read the comics yourself, as my goal isn't to replace the content, but to give it exposure to folks who might not have access to the material, because these are downright incredible stories. Tune in next time as I cover the Enerjack saga. Until then, spread love, y'all. Signing out, guys.